23 years ago this morning, nearly 3,000 people left home, never again to return. Thousands of Americans said goodbye to loved ones for the final time, unaware their lives would be forever changed. Danny McGinley was a 40-year-old father of 5 who in 2001 had just bought his dream home and was thriving at his job as a trader. McGinley was a beloved husband, the oldest of 5 brothers, a coach, and a father whose comedic, outgoing personality has been described as larger than life. His life was cut short, though, 23 years ago on this day when he went to work on the 89th floor of the South Tower, the second building hit by terrorists. Joining me now is Danny's brother, Dennis McGinley, a member of the group 9/11 Justice, who for 23 years has been fighting for accountability for the death of his brother and thousands of others. Danny, thank you so much for joining me this morning. You are at ground zero this morning. I know today it's not an easy one. How are you and your family doing this morning?
Well, thanks for having me on, first of all. It's very surreal. We've been coming for 23 years. You know, as I walked in the family entrance just a little while ago, I've had that pit in my stomach all week, but you walk in and you see the family members by their loved one's name. You see the crying, just gut-wrenching grief still to this day. This is not 23 years later for us. This is like September 13th. I'm sorry, September 12th, 2001. It's like we have to literally go back in time once a year and relive every minute of that day. It's tough to put into words.
Yeah, I know today is an emotional one, Dennis. You have been part of a movement for the last 23 years trying to hold Saudi Arabia accountable for their role in financially supporting those terrorists who committed those terror acts on 9/11. A lawsuit against the Saudi government is currently ongoing. How is that case going?
So, well, thanks for mentioning that. So it's not only did they help finance, but we now have smoking gun evidence that was recently unsealed in the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. We've identified 29 high-level Saudi officials that facilitated the hijackers. You can go on the internet this morning. It's like blowing up with, ProPublica, New York Times. Everyone's talking about this evidence. So what makes it more frustrating for us is, yes, it's very sad coming down here, but now it's getting really, the anger is really starting to come out. It's very frustrating to come down here now that we know, without a doubt, that the Saudi government was involved. And it's like, no one's held accountable. They're living their best life. They're, taking over golf and doing all these deals. And we still got to, all the politicians are over there in the roped off area. We need someone to help us. We need someone to end this nightmare.
What would it mean for the families of 9/11 victims if you were able to win this lawsuit and, as you said, hold them accountable?
I just think it would, this wound, this scab that gets reopened every year and then has to re-heal. I think it would just give a little bit. We're never going to get over it, right? The grief never leaves. You learn to live with it. It just becomes a part of you. But I think it might be eased a little bit, just knowing that the perpetrators took accountability. Look, we're all for having normal relations with Saudi Arabia, but you can't just keep moving on like nothing happened and fighting us in court, blocking our evidence, trying to dismiss the case. It's just like the evidence that we got right now. We didn't even get it from our own government. We had to get it from British intelligence. But this is what we're dealing with. This is what no one's been treated more unfairly than the 9/11 families, in my opinion, over the last 20 years.
Dennis, just about 20 seconds. But what do you want people to remember about your brother, Danny?
I just want to remember that, not just like my brother Danny, there's thousands of stories behind me. But my brother Danny was like, he was just the greatest guy. He would have done so much good for his family and for other people. And I think the world was a much, much happier, better place when Danny was in it. And again, it's not just my brother's story. It's thousands and thousands of other gut-wrenching stories that we're going to hear today. So that's what I would just like to get across.
Dennis, thank you so much. Yeah, Danny was one of 2,977 who lost their lives on this day 23 years ago. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you this morning. God bless you and your family.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well,